You wake up and the to-do list is right there, waiting the same way it's waited every morning this month. Nothing on it is even that hard. Answer the email, fold the laundry, make the call you've been putting off for a week. And yet you lie there staring at the ceiling, feeling a resistance so heavy it feels almost physical, like your body has quietly voted no before your mind even got a say. Someone might look at this from the outside and call it laziness. Maybe you've started calling it that yourself. But what if the problem was never a lack of willpower? What if your mind is not idle? It's depleted, running on a battery that's been draining for longer than you've noticed. In a culture obsessed with productivity, exhaustion of the mind is one of the most misunderstood states a person can be in. It doesn't look like collapsing. It doesn't come with a fever or a cast. It looks, from the outside, exactly like laziness, which means the people experiencing it are often the ones being blamed for a condition they didn't choose and can't simply think their way out of. Welcome back to Milky Way Psychology. Today we are going to break down 7 signs that you are emotionally exhausted, not lazy, the hidden science behind each one, and why understanding this distinction might be the most important reframe of your year. Stay until the end because the last sign is the one almost everyone misses in themselves. 1. Simple decisions suddenly feel enormous. Have you ever stood in front of your closet or stared at a restaurant menu and felt a wave of fatigue over a choice that should take 3 seconds? This is a well-documented phenomenon known as decision fatigue, the idea that our capacity for high-quality decision-making is a finite resource that depletes with use throughout the day. But when someone is emotionally exhausted, this depletion happens faster and deeper than usual because emotional regulation itself draws from the same finite well. If you've spent the day suppressing frustration, managing someone else's mood, or holding yourself together through a hard conversation, you've already spent resources that would normally be available for choosing what to eat for dinner. This is not indecisiveness. It's a nervous system that has already given everything it had to something else. 2. Tasks you normally enjoy suddenly feel like a burden. The hobby that used to relax you now feels like one more obligation. The show you love sits unwatched. Psychology has a term for the underlying mechanism, anhedonia, a gradual dulling of the reward response. It's most often discussed in the context of depression, but researchers also link it to prolonged emotional strain more broadly, which can quietly exhaust the brain's capacity to register pleasure even without a full depressive episode. Think of it like a muscle that's been clenched so long it's forgotten how to relax. Your brain's reward system isn't broken, it's overworked, and it needs a period of genuine rest before it can respond normally to things that once felt easy and good. 3. You feel tired no matter how much you sleep. You can sleep 8 hours and still wake up feeling like you ran a marathon in your sleep. This disconnect between hours slept and energy restored is one of the clearest signs of what sociologist Hochschild termed emotional labor. The invisible cost of constantly managing, masking, or performing emotional states, whether at work, at home, or in relationships. Unlike physical exhaustion, which sleep directly addresses, emotional exhaustion lives in a different system entirely. Sleep restores the body. It does not automatically restore a nervous system that has spent weeks bracing for conflict, absorbing other people's moods, or holding a version of yourself together for an audience. You are not sleeping wrong. You are carrying a weight that rest alone cannot lift. And this leads to the 4th sign, because a body under this kind of strain doesn't just feel tired, it starts to protect itself in ways that look a lot like withdrawal. 4. You start avoiding people you actually care about. You cancel plans with people you genuinely love spending time with. Calls go unanswered, not out of anger, but out of something closer to depletion. This is a hallmark of social withdrawal as a protective mechanism, a well-studied response in which the nervous system, sensing it has no more emotional bandwidth to offer, begins closing doors even to safe, positive connection. Imagine a phone at 1% battery. It doesn't selectively choose which apps to keep running. It shuts almost everything down to conserve what little power remains. Your withdrawal isn't a rejection of the people you love. It's a system-level shutdown, prioritizing survival over connection, even connection that would ordinarily nourish you. 5. Small frustrations trigger outsized reactions. A dropped spoon, a slow driver, a minor typo in an email, and suddenly you feel a flash of anger completely disproportionate to what actually happened. This is not a character flaw, it connects to a once influential theory called ego depletion, proposed by psychologist Baumeister, describing how self-control draws from a limited resource that runs low with use. It's worth noting that later research has struggled to consistently replicate the original findings, so the idea is best understood as a useful metaphor for a real experience feeling more reactive when worn down rather than settled science. What is well established is that the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for pausing between stimulus and reaction, requires significant metabolic energy to function. When that energy runs low, smaller and smaller triggers are enough to breach the threshold. You are not becoming a worse, more irritable person. You are a person whose emotional buffer has been worn thin by everything it's already had to absorb, leaving almost nothing left to cushion the ordinary bumps of daily life. 6. You feel numb instead of sad. Perhaps the most disorienting sign of emotional exhaustion isn't overwhelming sadness, it's the absence of feeling almost entirely. A flatness, a sense of watching your own life from slightly outside it. Psychologists describe this as emotional blunting, a protective numbing that can occur when the nervous system has been overstimulated for so long that it begins muting input altogether simply to survive the load. This is your mind doing something remarkably adaptive, even if it doesn't feel that way. In psychology, we sometimes explain it through the lens of allostatic load, the cumulative wear on the body and mind from chronic stress. When that load becomes too heavy, numbness isn't apathy. It's the nervous system's last line of defense. And this leads to the 7th and final sign, the one that ties every other sign together and is often the hardest one to see in yourself. 7. You feel guilty for needing rest. Here is the cruelest part of emotional exhaustion. Even once you recognize it, you may still feel a deep, nagging guilt for allowing yourself to slow down. This connects to a pattern psychologists call contingent self-worth, a form of self-esteem that depends on ongoing performance rather than existing independently of it, often absorbed early in life, leaving a lingering belief that rest must be earned rather than simply needed. This is why so many emotionally exhausted people push through instead of stopping, not because they don't recognize the exhaustion, but because stopping feels on some deep and often unconscious level like failure. But rest is not a reward for finishing. It is a biological requirement for functioning at all, and denying it doesn't make you more resilient. It simply postpones the collapse. Look at these 7 signs together: the impossible decisions, the vanished joy, the sleep that doesn't restore you, the withdrawal from people you love, the outsized reactions to small things, the numbness and the guilt over needing rest, and a single truth comes into focus. None of this is laziness. Laziness is the absence of motivation. What you're experiencing is the presence of an overwhelming demand met by a system that has quietly run out of resources to meet it. Emotional exhaustion doesn't announce itself the way physical exhaustion does. There's no visible injury, no doctor's note, no obvious cause anyone can point to. It simply erodes you day by day until stillness starts looking from the outside indistinguishable from laziness, when in reality, it's the opposite. It's the cost of having cared, tried, and held on for far longer than anyone realized. If you have spent months or years quietly wondering what's wrong with you for needing more rest than everyone around you seems to need, understand this. You are not lazy, and you are not broken. Your exhaustion is real, it is explainable, and it deserves to be treated with the same seriousness you would give any other depleted resource. You are allowed to rest without justifying it. You are allowed to slow down without earning permission. Your worth was never supposed to be measured in output. Thank you for spending this time with Milky Way Psychology. If you recognized yourself in even one of these 7 signs, share your story in the comments. You are far from alone in this. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if this video helped you feel understood. Until next time, goodbye.